we're going to get started.
Okay.
Just give me a second here and we're going to get going. I'm just getting things lined up here for us. 1 second, please.
Mhm.
All right. And then we want to go to here. Oops. Here. And then we want to go to here. And then we want to go to here. Okay, we don't need this. All right, so can everyone on Zoom here see the screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so we got a bunch of you on Zoom. We got one person live in the room, so we are just going to get right into this. And if you have anything to say and you're on Zoom, you can put it in the chat, but I might miss it. So just mute and talk. Okay, it's a small enough group. If it were 20, I would say put it in chat, but it's small enough group, so just unmute and talk. The fact that you have your cameras on, I'm very grateful. It is so much easier to do these sorts of things when I can see the peoples. Okay, so this is one of my favorite subjects because I started out really focused on buyers when I started my career. I didn't have my first listing until, well, I actually did have my first listing in my second year, but I really didn't get a lot of listings in the first 3-4 years. It was mostly buyers. And we are in an age now where we have to go to buyers and say, pay us money. You are going to pay us money for this service. Even if we can try to get the seller to agree, we're going to start by having this conversation about, we're going to have this conversation about commissions. So we want to talk about, how do we talk about the work we do? You know, I talk a lot with you guys about value proposition, but another element is just being able to describe how awesome you are as just a basic straight up realtor. And so we're going to sort of talk about that today. And what I've done with this presentation is I've made a distinction between a feature of a realtor and a benefit of a realtor. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about value proposition, secret sauce, features versus benefits, and some examples. And if time allows, we'll answer questions and do some role play. So I'm going to dig right in. Value proposition. So one of the things that happens when you meet with anyone to hire you for any service, or you are in a store shopping for a product, is you are determining whether the cost of the product is worth what you get for it. And so that, we call that a value proposition. And it happens to, you guys do it all the time when even if we're buying bananas, you know, if we're looking at produce at the grocery store, we're taking a value proposition. We're making a value proposition. So there is no question that what you do, or at least there should be not any question, that what you do in your job is worth something to your clients. And so a value proposition or a value statement answers the question, why should I pay you for your efforts? Why should I pay you, right? So in addition to what I'm about to talk about, every one of you has a secret sauce. I call it a secret sauce. So, you know, years ago, I don't know if it's still true, you used to be able to, you'd go to a fast food joint and you'd ask for the secret sauce. So if you ever go to In-N-Out Burger in California, you can ask for something to be delivered animal style. And it's all part of this kind of mystique of what makes them unique and different. And you all have something unique in your experience, even if you're 20 years old, that makes you unique and different compared to other real estate agents offering buyer agency. And there are going to be people who really, really resonate with that unique experience or unique service offering. So that is something I want you to give some thought to. I ask you all to think about your value proposition in your new agent assignment. But some of you did that 2 years ago or a year ago. And some of you who are newer may not have done it yet, but I want you to think about this. If you're at a party and you're just partying away and everyone's talking about what kind of work they do, I don't want you guys just to say, I'm a realtor or a real estate agent. I want you guys to be able to say, I'm a real estate agent that everyone would want to work with, or that people would want to work with because of X, which is maybe secret and unique to you. Not secret, but unique to you. It might be a language skill, for example. So you may not be, when I say unique, I mean against the general, against the average, not necessarily exclusive. So you may have a language skill. You may have a community of interest. You may have a skill set that you got before real estate that is transferable that other people coming into real estate don't have. Lawyers, for example, property managers, accountants, tax professionals, contractors, right? Those are the obvious ones. And that secret sauce may have nothing to do with specifically being a realtor, but is powerful. If you are thinking to yourself, I don't have anything about me that is unique. I don't know what this is about. I can't think of anything. I want you to set up a one-on-one appointment with me so we can talk about this, and I will help you. I will ask the questions to help dig through and help you find it. Okay, so I want to talk about, for the most of this class, about features versus benefits of being a real estate agent, specifically with regard to buyer agency. So I'm going to define some terms first. The first thing I want to talk about is feature. What is a feature? A feature is a task or an attribute associated with the job being performed or the service being provided. So, for example, a feature of the job realtor is somebody who's going to show properties to potential buyers, which is great. A benefit, on the other hand, is how that feature is helpful to the client, how it makes it worthwhile. There's that worth word again, right? Value, such that they'd be willing to pay for it. So, for example, a feature of a CPA might be that they prepare your tax return, but the benefit is that their knowledge and expertise is going to save you money on what you owe the government in taxes. So we want to think about what we do as real estate agents that way. When you're doing a buyer consultation, you don't want to just be rattling off a list of all the great things you do. You want to be sharing with your client either verbally or through your actions or through some sort of pretty chart why it's so great for them that you do this thing. And we're going to do that together in this workshop. The thing to remember, guys, is that if you get a real estate license and you are adequately trained, you should all be able to do the features of the job. We're going to go through the features of buyer agency. You all should be able to do them. And you're learning how to do them in coaching classes and in your training, right? But the place where you can really differentiate yourself from all the other real estate agents out there, including ones with experience, is that most real estate professionals aren't able to explain why what they do is so important to the buyers and why it's worth paying for. This is why the best agents can command 3% buyer agency fee or higher, because they're able to do this in a compelling way where people say, oh my God, I've got to have that agent. I'm willing to pay 3.5% maybe, or 4%. Okay, so let's start. Before I get into this, does anyone have any questions? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Jeff.
Well, you just mentioned about a 3% commission. Are we allowed to say I'm charging you 3.5%? Is that legal or is that
Are you allowed? All commissions are negotiable on both directions. So you can ask for whatever you want to try to get away with. If you go too far above 3%, you're going to be so far away from the standard that you're going to need to have a good justification for someone to want to pay that much. But sure, if you're going to roll in property management services, which we can't do at this brokerage, but maybe you're going to roll into your buyer agency some other really enhanced service offering. Maybe the client wants you to travel 2 hours to show them property every time, and you're going to have huge expense in time. You might be able to say, listen, you really want to work with me? That's all cool and good, but I have to charge you 3.5%. I can't
Right.
do it for 3% because of the time and gas and expense.
Correct.
That's a good example, actually. Far more likely than the property management one. Because at our brokerage, we're not allowed to do property management. You can broker leases, but you can't manage properties. Did I answer your question, Jeff?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, let's go on. So the first thing I want to talk about is needs assessment. Most buyers expect a real estate agent to ask them certain questions. How many bedrooms do you need? How many bathrooms do you need? What neighborhood or city or area do you want to be in? How much financial capacity do you have? All those basic needs assessment questions are pretty standard. And it makes a big difference. Asking the questions is great. It's what you do with the answers that is really, really important. And where you can really bring value is helping your buyers determine the difference between what they need to have versus what they want to have. Sometimes our buyers, so when you have a toddler or an 8-year-old, as Matthew and Becca are going to discover as their child grows up, that when they get in front of a dinner plate, they want more and more and more and more. And there's this phrase that some of you may be familiar with, that your eyes are bigger than your stomach. So the same thing happens in real estate sales with our buyers. Our buyers have a richer appetite than they can afford. They want Montclair houses at a East Oakland price, which is a bit of an exaggeration, right? But they want the best value. They want to get the best deal they can get. But there's also a need for us to share with them, not just what's realistic in the marketplace, but what they really need versus what they want to have. I absolutely need to have a 4 bedrooms and 2.5 bathrooms. You don't just write down or make a note that they need 4 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms. You want to help them figure out what the need is really. What do they need the extra half bathroom for? What do they envision it being used for? What are they going to use the 4th bedroom for? What would happen if you found them the perfect house in every other respect, but it only had 3 bedrooms? So you want to ask questions to sort of really help them, because sometimes it's really hard for them to pin that down. Now, needs assessment also helps your client understand and work through preparatory steps before they go shopping. Helping them to arrange for financial pre-approval is the most obvious one, but sometimes they're going to need to work on other things like getting their credit sorted out, or even simply determining what neighborhood is the right neighborhood or what city is the right city. Your patience and support in that will distinguish you. There are plenty of average agents out there, and the person doesn't have a pre-approval, that they basically say, call me when you have a pre-approval, or call me when you figure out what you want. You don't want to be that agent. You want to be the valued consultant who is happy to spend an hour or even an hour and a half with someone who is 6 months away from buying. And as you get busier, you'll leverage that skill so that it doesn't hurt your ability to serve actual clients. But I think it's really important that we bring value to the needs assessment component. Another way that you can do this is by having a stable of key business partners. At this brokerage, we encourage you to develop relationships with the business partners that the brokerage offers you. Now, you guys are independent business people within the brokerage. You don't have to use the company's referred lender or the company's referred insurance agent or the company's preferred this or that. You don't have to. You can work with whomever business partners are going to be best fit for what your needs are. But having them also begins to distinguish you from the average. You know, the average will say, oh, here are, go talk to your bank about getting a loan, or go on to Yelp and, you can find your best plumber there, right? But if you can tell people, hey, I've got a guy or a gal, you enhance your value, especially if you're then able to say that I work with 3 or 4 of my clients, worked with them and have had great experiences. That helps bring a sense of value right off the top as well. Another way you bring value is by helping to give a discriminatory partner kind of perspective on evaluating when you have multiple collaborators. So if you have a buyer who comes to you and says, I want to go work with a big bank, I don't know, doesn't matter which one. Well, I want to work big bank, and you share with them a little bit about working with big banks versus working with mortgage lenders, brokers, or mortgage banks, and you share with them the information about a bank lender that you like. That is bringing value to them, even if they ultimately choose to go with the one that you would not have chosen. And I'm speaking of very recent personal experience. You've shown value and you've shown that you get this needs assessment thing down pat just by bringing to the table alternatives that are vetted and making sure that your buyer is aware of the pitfalls and strengths and weaknesses of different types of mortgage lenders. Speaking of which, brazen self-promotion here, on my same coaching channel where this video is going to end up, there is a class I taught some months ago about working with lenders and helping to figure out the different types of lender partners and what they do and the pros and cons of each one. So you can be an expert without having had the experience I've had just by watching my video. What it were that easy, right? But it's a start. It's a start, and I'm happy to share the experience with you. All right. Any questions about needs assessment before I move on to another very typical thing we do? Okay. Finding property. Okay, finding property. So most agents will provide a list. And for non-computer savvy buyers, they love to get your email with the properties, or maybe you're using a portal site for them to search properties, and you're sending them stuff in the MLS. Well, the best agents help their clients find properties that are not on the MLS. Okay. And the best agents research the properties before they show them. Not necessarily reviewing the entire disclosure package, but checking out some key variables, even previewing it to make sure it meets the client's needs before you show it to them. You could call top listing agents or other agents with recent sales in the area of the property to get knowledge about the market, the local market, to share with the client. You could make it your business to find out about all of your office's off-market listings and find a match that way. The best agents try that all the time. They come to sales meetings and they say, hey, listen, I have a buyer who needs a 6-bedroom, 2,500 square foot house in Berkeley, for example. Okay, something that is just not common. And the other agents will very often say, I've got something coming up that might be a fit, stuff like that. Door knocking to find a seller. So you want to sell a client a home and there's no inventory, and they absolutely have to be in a specific neighborhood. What if you were to knock on the doors, do a door knocking campaign of houses that meet the general need of your client? Hey, I actually have a buyer for your house. Do you have any interest at all in selling your house? Leave a flyer. And golden letters. Golden letters are another strategy of the same nature. A golden letter is a mail campaign, a direct mail campaign. That's the same idea. I've got a buyer that's looking in your neighborhood for a house that your house is the same configuration, or they want to buy a house like yours, they want to get in this neighborhood any which way, they don't care about the size of the house. Do you have any interest in selling your house? Again, these types of strategies set you apart. Any questions? Yeah, Jack.
Where's the off-market listings? Where can we find the off-market listings?
Oh, that's a great question. Jack in the room here is saying, where can we find off-market listings? So one place you can find off-market listings is by talking to the listing agents in our brokerage who are selling in those areas, right? When we go to team meetings like we have coming up in all the offices, when we go to events, you have a buyer, you could go to, I've known agents who were at some networking event that has nothing to do with lead gen, and they will go to every agent in the room and say, listen, I have an urgent need for a buyer who needs to buy this and this property and this price point and this circumstance. Do you have anything coming up? That's a way. You could also go to your local market association meeting. So for Oakland Berkeley, it's on Monday mornings. For Fremont, it's on Thursday mornings. And I believe it's on Friday mornings in Palo Alto. And so you can go to these meetings and meet agents outside our brokerage who are promoting listings and may know about off-market opportunities. I sold 1, 2, 3 homes last year off-market, from off-market opportunity. So they're out there. There are, it also is something that will help you distinguish yourself from the crowd, obviously. Great question. All right.
You could also check expired listings and see if they still want to sell their home.
Oh, what a great idea, Mark. Did everyone get that? Go to all the expired listings and reach out to the seller and see if they are interested. And they might be interested, especially if you have a buyer already. For sure, for sure. Great idea. Thank you. All right. The next main feature is we show houses. That's the most obvious one. In fact, there are still many, many people out there who think that's all we do. We're pretty good for getting the door opened because they can't get in themselves. But what if you were to preview homes before you showed them? What if you actually went into the home an hour or half an hour before? And so when your client got there, you would already have an idea of what you want them to make sure they look at. And what if something you wanted to show them was exactly something they mentioned to you in the consultation that was interesting to them? Instead of mutually discovering it and going, ooh, isn't this often? What if you went to that part of the house first? Jack, I am so excited to show you this house today because I want to show you what's going on in the basement because it's exactly what we talked about. And you go there first. Now suddenly you're not just showing the home, you're bringing the value of their relationship you have with them to that showing, okay? What if you customized your home tours? We have an agent in our office in Fremont who makes her showings into an experience for the buyers. She has a tea service. And so when she takes the showing, she has 4 or 5 properties she's going to show them. And it starts out with tea service where she brings them out tea to drink. And she's made the showing list into a little fancy pamphlet and everything. So it's not just a bunch of MLS sheets. And the whole thing is like, I want to go look at houses with that person. It's like going on a little adventure, right? So that's an interesting idea. It helps to distinguish her. It also shows a kind of a level of care that is exemplary. What if you phoned the listing agent before you showed it and got a little tidbit that isn't on the MLS and may not even be in disclosures? Hey, I'm going to show your property today. What do you think is something that isn't in the disclosures that, might not come out obviously or is hidden that would be really great for me to tell my buyer about? Nobody does that. If you want to get really creative, you could actually knock on the doors of the neighborhood beforehand and ask the neighbors about the house. And you'd get all kinds of good stuff. If you have a colleague, what if you look at the sales history for the last 6 months and you have someone in the office or even not, an agent who's done business in that street in the last 6 months? What if you phoned them and say, hey, listen, I've got this property. I think it has great potential for my client. I'd like to know what your experience was selling on that street. Anything interesting? That'd be an interesting dialogue, right? Potentially really, really helpful. Okay. Okay. Let's keep going. The next one,
Stephen, can I ask a quick question?
of course, please do.
How would one find out what other agents in your brokerage have maybe sold on that street in the last 6
MLS.
months?
Just look at the MLS. If you look at the MLS solds and ping up each listing, it'll tell you in the neighborhood. You do a tight geographic search, it'll tell you all the solds in the neighborhood, and you can see who the buyer's agent was and who the listing agent was.
Great.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about disclosures. Another brazen plug. I have a whole class on disclosures on my coaching channel. So your job with disclosures is just to help the client, to get the client the paperwork that the seller's provided. Sometimes that's complicated because sometimes it isn't in the initial disclosure package. Sometimes there is no disclosure package. We help our client understand what they're looking at. We verify the package is complete. We obtain any missing documents, which I think is basic standard, but there are agents who aren't that good at that. But that's the basic job. But how do you go above and beyond? So if your client is getting serious about the property, you're going to want to have a meeting with them about the disclosures. So what if after you've read the disclosures, before you meet with your client, you talk to the listing agent about your questions so that you could understand what's going on as well? That might save you from saying to the client, I'm going to have to ask the listing agent about that. What if your clients review the disclosure package and they seem to not have seen some stuff that was important for them to see? What if you were able to help them know things that you've observed that are important for them to consider, that you would want to be considering if you were an agent? I think that's absolutely appropriate. You just don't want to cross the line. Be careful. You don't want to cross the line of telling them what's important and what isn't important, and what's more important and less important. But you certainly do want to bring to their attention things that they might have missed that you as an experienced agent would want to know as a buyer, right? Fiduciary duty. So there's a great deal of potential for you to be of great assistance in disclosure review. Okay. But there are limits to it. You can't suddenly become an expert in an HOA, for example, right? You might have some knowledge of how to think about the HOA docs, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're an expert in the HOA docs. Your clients do not relinquish the responsibility to review the disclosures and make sure their questions are answered. The key thing about disclosures, guys, is that your clients do not sign off on disclosures until they're comfortable with what they say, right? Which requires work on their part, some of which they're not willing to do. So a good fiduciary will really be encouraging the client to put the time in, right? To review the disclosures. And in my disclosures class, we talk about disclosure information advisory, the DIA form in Zip Forms, which gets you off the hook a little bit if they are not willing to read the disclosure package. It's sort of like, buyer, read the disclosures and sign this to say you know you have to. Very California. Okay. CMA. Obviously, pretty common idea that we're going to help the client understand the market conditions, and we're going to look at the local sales, and we're going to help our clients figure out a fair price. Okay, we do that. By the way, a little tip on that: never tell your buyers to offer $1,130,000. Always give them a range. you know, based on these comps, I recommend you come in between 1,000,001 and 1,150,000. I always do a range. But anyway, how do we go above and beyond? Well, you absolutely should call the listing agent or the buyer's agent on the solds to ask them how many offers they actually got. And the same with the pending sales. They are not, the numbers that get put in the MLS are not vetted for accuracy. So let's suppose a property is on the market for 90 days. Sometimes you'll see a property on the market for a long time and it says 4 offers. Okay, and you think 4 offers, it was on the market 90 days. That doesn't mean that it was a multiple offer situation. It just means that over the time they marketed the property, they got 4 offers. It also doesn't mean that all 4 offers were competitive. 3 of them could have been from lowball investors that were not even considered by the seller. So this number of offers that we see on the MLS isn't reliable. So you want to phone the listing agent and find out as much as you can about the other properties that sold and what the offer scenario was like, right? That helps inform how truly competitive the bidding was for that property that you're comparing yours to. For pendings, it should be standard practice, but sadly it isn't, to contact the buyer agent or the listing agent for all the pendings and find out what it's under contract for. Many agents will not give you an exact number, but many will. And if they don't give you an exact number, beg them to give you an idea. Below asking a lot, below asking a little, asking, above asking a little bit, above asking a lot. Just try to get somewhere. Get what you can get. At least make the effort.
Right.
To the extent that you can view comparable sales in person, but while they're still in pending status, that might help your client before you meet with them to talk about your CMA, right? These are all things that will distinguish you. I'm not saying you have to do each and every one of them, guys. I'm just saying they all contribute to superior buyer agency and help. There are also things that you can talk about. You're at a party and you can say, most agents don't pick one, pick your favorite one from today. And at the party, you can say, you know, most agents don't do this really critical piece. And I do this for all my buyers standard, even if you haven't had a buyer sale yet. All right, next thing we do, we review the contract and the associated offer paperwork with our client. We go through paperwork. Isn't that exciting? We all learn the real estate purchase agreement. We learn the disclosures. We have tons of classwork about all that stuff. And the benefit of us doing that, obviously, is we help our buyer to understand the details of what they're signing. How would you go above and beyond here? Well, you can verify your buyer's pre-approval letter. Even if, because you don't want to, it's worth having a conversation with the buyer's lender to make sure everyone's on the same page and it says what you need it to say. You're going to verify the proof of funds and other documents. Many buyer's agents just accept the proof of funds. They don't even look at it. Well, that's not good. Look at the proof of funds that the buyer has sent you. Make sure the dollars add up to the amount of funds you need to prove. Make sure the statement isn't 6 months old, et cetera, et cetera. I have a whole class on that talks about getting off. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. Explain the intricacies of contract terms and take as long as it takes. You know, even though we get to learn these contracts really well, and when we get experienced, it's like the back of our hand. We know exactly what's there, and we could talk about it in our sleep, maybe have nightmares. But whatever it is, we know it really well. But for our buyers, this is intimidating paperwork. So we become really valued consultants in walking them through what these things mean. And even in this day of AI, when a buyer can look it up on AI, people like to have stuff like this explained to them by a human because there's that whole trust and reliability thing that happens kind of intricately and interestingly in a human interaction. So we still have a very big role to play to explain contingencies, for example, or explain cancellation rights, or explain liquidated damages, or whatever it is. We have a role to play in setting expectations. Before the buyer submits the offer, they should understand all the timelines and know all the main things that might happen during the escrow, and the performance standards about removing contingencies and getting the deposit to escrow and all those other things. Some buyers' agents have a meeting with newly signed buyers to review the offer paperwork before they write any offers, before they even go look at houses, so that the buyer is not intimidated when they're ready to write a real offer. There's some great value in this, because when many first-time buyers especially, they look at this offer paperwork and it's an added level of stress while they're going to write the offer. Well, what if they'd seen it before? What if you've reviewed it with them before? So when they go to review it with you with real data in it, it's a little less scary. There are lots of ways that you can go above and beyond. These are just some ideas. Jack?
I have some buyers, like they just know me, so they're not really feel comfortable to share with me their like financial information.
Yeah.
Some of them barely can get them to be approval with the lending agent, with the loan agent. But how to ask them for the proof of funds in that situation?
So I think what's important for you to explain, did everyone hear Jack's question? Okay, good. So basically, way I would handle that and say, look, I know you don't want me to see this. Somebody needs to look at it before the offer is submitted, because in our market, we can't really submit an offer if we don't know that you have enough money in a bank account to pay the closing costs and your down payment. So given that we need to sell this with the seller, I ask for this. Now, I want you to feel comfortable sharing it with me because I have a fiduciary duty to you, which includes confidentiality. So I'm not at liberty to share it with anybody else. And one of the things that I do is I black out all of your account numbers and address information before I send it to the seller side. But we do need to send it in. If you're still uncomfortable with me looking at it, then we can have your lender do it. I can arrange with your lender for them to do this whole process and send that to the seller, and I won't even see it, but we still need to get it to the seller somehow. How do you want to move forward?
Thank you.
Any questions, guys, about that as a solution to the privacy concern?
Wouldn't it be better just to let the mortgage company do that? They're the experts, right?
Well, we're talking about proof of funds. No, you want to be, as the agent representing the buyer, you want to be presenting the full package. The offer, the proof of funds, and the pre-approval letter. It should all be coming from one source to the listing agent. So if you have to separate it and have the lender provide something, I think that's suboptimal a little bit. And for certain listing agents, it runs the risk of creating a red flag scenario where the listing agent says, why am I not getting this from the buyer's agent? Is there some sort of problem between the
Okay, that's kind of expected then.
Yeah, it's pretty standard. But I also respect privacy. If you come into a situation where you need the lender to send documents to the listing agent, I would go to the listing agent and say, just a heads up, my buyer has requested that the lender send you the letter directly. The lender will be sending you the financial information directly. Our offer will be coming separately. And just leave it at that. It'll be perfectly fine. All right.
I did ask a former client of mine for that kind of thing too before, if they're comfortable,
Yeah.
We
Oh,
share
yeah.
that.
You can avoid or at least begin to mitigate a problem like this by having the discussion way back at your buyer consultation when you talk about the process, right? And you talk about having lender financing and you talk about offer. You could talk about this in your consultation. You can say, listen, when we go to write an offer, I will require proof of funds. Let me tell you what that looks like. Just want to give you a heads up, it's going to be needed. Especially if your buyer is a little less sophisticated or they have some concerns about financing. Because the other thing you need to discuss with your buyer is, where is your down payment coming from?
Yeah.
If you're talking to a buyer and they're telling you it's under the mattress, or they don't want to tell you, all right, they don't want to tell you at all, you've got a problem right away, right? If they're really being, because sort of need to know that the money's good. Otherwise, you could get into a situation where you write an offer, it gets accepted, and they don't have the money, right?
It could
I-
also be coming from another source like parents or grandparents.
Yeah, gifted funds are fine, but you want to know that
Yeah.
because that impacts how you prepare the offer and what you say to the listing agent.
Well,
Great.
my understanding too is that because you're not the loan officer, you're not needing to dig through all of their finances. So
Oh, absolutely
it's
not.
just being able to like show, hey, we're making this commitment to this contract and we have the funds to be able to go through with this contract.
Exactly, exactly. And when you're consulting with them long before offer writing time, all you need to know is what their down payment is. This is for a buyer consultation and getting them into an arrangement with you. It is not for offers. What is the down payment they're anticipating putting down? How much monthly payment they think they can afford that would max out their pre-approval? And do they have liquid funds for the deposit? Right? That's it. And beyond that, it really isn't your business what their credit score is, how much money they make, if they're paying child support or collecting it. None of that matters to you. The lender needs to know, but not you. Okay, let me keep going because we have a few more of these categories. Offer preparation and submission. So, you guys might think this is the least important part, but I got to tell you, I've had many offers over the years accepted over competing offers for this reason. It is quite one thing to assemble the offer and send it in and not make a lot of technical mistakes. It's quite another thing to make a presentation that sellers agents love. If you submit well-written, well-presented, and professional-looking offers, and you're competitive, your buyer is competitive, you are going to have an edge, I promise you, because it reflects your professionalism in a very big way, and listing agents immediately psychologically feel more confident dealing with you. They just feel better about it. And guys, I've got a whole class on this on my coaching channel on YouTube called Prepare Winning Offers. And we go through every element of the offer paperwork and what you should do to make your offer look well presented and professional. And of course, the best agents always have their lender call the listing agent to promote the offer and their client prior to the offer being reviewed. So you want a relationship with the buyer's lender where they will make a call for you. Hey, Mr. Buyer Lender, the offer just got submitted. Could you call Charlie over at XYZ Realty and let him know how awesome Joe and Joanna are?
Question.
Yes, of course.
Don't we use standardized forms for offer and other paperwork? Meaning,
Standardized contracts, but presentation. I mean, nowadays people are putting things on HomeLight, but they're still attaching PDF files. What if your PDF file looks really professional? So, you're right in the sense that the contract is a standard legal contract. But what about supplemental paragraph? What about a letter of introduction? What about a summary page? What about a table of contents because there's so many documents? What about following the instructions the listing agent gave you to add this form and that form and make sure you add this part to the offer? There's a lot to it, Manish, but great
oh,
question.
okay. Thank you.
Okay, negotiating. Now, a lot of people think that we negotiate on their behalf, and they're right. We help save our clients money by getting them the best price. There's no question about this. So how can we do this better? How can we go above and beyond in this regard? Well, certainly you want to have conversations with the listing agent about where their seller is coming from. Why is the seller selling? What's the most important thing for the seller? See, there's lazy agents. It may shock you to know, but there are lazy agents out there who they'll submit the offer and they never, ever talk to the listing agent. I can't tell you how rare it is. I shouldn't say rare. It's not common. It's uncommon for the listing agent to be contacted by the buyer's agent with questions. More often than not, the offer just shows up, right? Now, I don't want you guys to be that. I want you guys to be the buyer's agent that calls the listing agent and asks them questions like, what's it going to take to win? Are there any terms beyond the price that are important to your client, like a rent back or a quick closing or something else? There's just a lot of things you can ask to find out about what they're going to do. What are you going to do? What is your client's plan if they don't sell the house, right? Stuff like that. When you're negotiating, you need to be able to call up on the phone call or in the negotiation comparable sales data. So if the seller's agent tells you that his client won't sell for anything less than 1.3 and there's no comps at all that you found, I think it's perfectly okay for you to say to the listing agent, that's really awesome that he wants to get 1.3. Do you have any comps that give us how we get to that number? Because, my clients want the property if it's worth 1.3, but I couldn't find any comps over 1.25. So show me something, please share it. I'll share it with my client. It doesn't mean that your client's going to offer 1.3. It just means you're going to be able to negotiate better, Collaborate with your buyers' lenders, or the ones that you refer, that you have a relationship already, to help support your bargaining stance. And what I mean by that is you may have power to modify the offer a little bit depending on what the lender says to you. So for example, let's suppose the lender says they can close in 2 weeks, right? And you're going to write a 21-day deal. Maybe you can have a conversation with a lender about, well, can we close in 10 days? Or can we remove a contingency faster so that we have something to offer the other side? Negotiating is a give and take thing, and everyone expects to get something when they give something. So there's some great books on negotiations, guys. One of my favorites is called Never Split the Difference. And it's by a former hostage negotiator, which makes sense. You don't want to split the difference. Okay, you can kill 5 of the hostages as long as we get the other 6 out, right? Yeah. So his book is called Never Split the Difference. Great book about negotiations. Anyway, there's lots of good books about that too. Also, if you're feeling a little nervous about negotiations, the best agents collaborate with their colleagues. Go to whoever you think is the best negotiator in the office, from watching them at meetings or asking your mentor or your coach about it, and ask them how they would do it. Even ask your mentor and your coach, what do you recommend I do to get this to where I need it to go? Okay. Managing escrow. This is another thing I have a whole class on separately in the coaching YouTube channel. Managing escrow, super, super important. Your job is not done when the offer is accepted. That's really important to understand that you've got a lot of work to do to get it across the finish line and get paid. There's stuff that happens. Humans don't always behave as expected. So how do you manage an escrow? How do you become the project manager, if you will, of this process to get where your buyers get the keys? Well, first of all, set clear expectations. You should have a calendar of events and advisories on an ongoing basis during escrow to your buyers about what is going to happen and what things they need to take care of and when. You want to make your clients feel as if they've been fully informed every single step of the way. And to the extent that you can, and a lot of this comes with experience, anticipate potential issues in advance. So you're newer. So I would expect you guys to go to your mentors and to your coach and say, hey, what kind of things should I be thinking about in regard to this matter? Try to practice a sign-off technique for all two-way communications. So what do I mean by a sign-off technique? Your buyer texts you, I want this. You text back here's the information you want. Then the buyer says, thank you. Their thank you is a sign off, but you need to close the loop by giving a thumbs up or acknowledging them. You don't want to leave things unacknowledged. That may not have been the best example. Let's suppose you asked for some information, they gave you the information. You then have an obligation to sign it off by thanking them for the information. That's the better idea. A thumbs up is fine for text. Okay? Or email, thank you, got it, is fine. Okay? Don't leave people hanging about information that's been received. That's all.
Is there anything else I can help you with?
Yeah, that's great. That's a great close. That is a great close. Thank you, Mark. The last thing I want to say about managing escrow is that it can be stressful. I know that there are agents on this call who've had stressful escrows. Things that have happened that have made them sort of a little nervous. They have to talk to the mentor at 11 o'clock at night or the coach. Stuff happening, right? That's totally expected. What I want to see and what goes above and beyond, quite frankly, is it's invisible to your clients. As far as the clients are concerned, everything is being explained and is being managed in a professional manner. There's no room for you to be sharing your frustration or your turbulence with your clients. It has to be behind the scenes. Okay. And that is another way you go above and beyond. So, for example, you're trying to get someone to hire you to be their agent. If you have experience managing stressful situations, I would bring that up. I would remind them, you need a real estate agent who knows how to handle really complicated things. And here's what I used to do. And when I used to do that, oh my God, it was crazy. I had 17 inputs and 15 outputs every hour. So you don't have to worry. I'm going to take good care of you. That's pretty compelling dialogue. Okay, next. I think we're nearing the end. Yeah, we're at the end. Does anybody have any other questions? Okay, so given that there are no other questions, we don't really have time for anything else. I did want to leave up on the screen the QR code. So if you click this QR code, my assistant will send you the PDF, the slide deck from this presentation as a PDF. And of course, the audio and video of it is going to be available on the YouTube channel.
One question, Stephen.
Yes.
I'm wondering, is there one place where we can find every listing from our brokerage?
You can do an MLS search by brokerage.
You can. I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, it's a bit tricky.
The search is you search the office and then put the name.
But the thing is, Mark, you have a different MLS than them.
That's
so
true.
Their MLS might, but there is a way. If you can't figure it out by next Friday, let's look at it together, okay?
Okay, sounds
Becca?
good. Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was maybe something available through like the KW app, which I'm not.
Oh, no, you know what's interesting? There's another way to get at this information. So apart from the MLS, you can go to your agent services person and ask them for the list of all the listings from our office in any given point in time.
Good to know.
So you could do it that way too. Go to agent services. Agent services. Go to agent services and say, can you please email me a list of the listing and who the listing agents were?
Great.
You can even do it for closings. Buyer sides too.
Nice.
But start with the MLS because it'll give you way more information. It won't just have a property address, but you'll be able to see specs about the property and how long it was on the market and all that other good stuff.
Nice.
Great question.
And returning to off-market listings just briefly. So I know that we get something in an email from our agent services with a link to off-market listings in our brokerage. It's often pretty outdated from my experience. I think I've called some of those agents and it's no longer being offered or this or that. So aside from that, you said visiting the weekly local bridge, marketing meeting.
Yeah, or call the agents. Ask agent services who the top 10 producers are and just call the top 10.
Okay.
Or reach out to someone on their staff, their ops person. Some of the biggest teams have ops managers who are far more available than the rainmaker on the team. But you could do that. That might be faster. Because if you reach out to the top 10 producers, you're going to cover, sadly, 85% of the listings,
Wow.
right? In most offices, not all. Maybe I'm exaggerating. But there is a concentration. But if you want 100%, you need to call everybody who is listing homes. But there's a lot of hit and miss there because you don't know who's listing homes at any given, who's got pocket listings at any given time. Office meetings, in addition to the group meetings, your office meeting is a good place to go. Okay, and you can stand up and you can say, does anyone have anything like this? Because remember, those office meetings, even if they don't have a lot of people in person, they usually have a bunch of people on Zoom that are hearing your question.
Thanks.
All right, guys, it's 3 o'clock. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. I hope everybody has a great weekend. And thank you for, and I look forward to seeing you guys all soon. Take care.
Thank you, Stephen.
Bye,
Thank you, Stephen.
Thanks.